So we'll have roll call. Mrs. Murphy?
Here.
Mrs. Reed is walking, she's here. Ms. Wilson?
Here.
Ms. Overby?
Here.
Ms. Price?
Here.
And Mrs. Wells is absent, and I'm Mike Carney. Okay, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance.
Careful.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you haven't already done it, would you please silence your cell phones if you happen to have one? Thank you. The district mission statement.
Thank you, President Carney. This is just my monthly reminder to speak clearly in the microphone for those watching back at home on the YouTube feed. As to the mission statement, the mission of the Leavenworth Public Schools is to prepare every student for success in every classroom, every day.
Thank you. No patron input? Okay, moving right along.
I'd like to make a motion for the adoption of the agenda as we have it presented. I'll second.
We have a motion to adopt the agenda by Mrs. Murphy, second by Mrs. Overby, correct? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 6-0. 6-0. The consent agenda. Any interest in the consent agenda by anybody?
Make a
That's a no.
motion to adopt the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
There's been a motion to adopt the consent agenda by Mrs. Reed, seconded by Mrs. Murphy. All in favor?
Aye.
6-0. Well, the meeting's over. Oh,
Michael.
okay, where are we at? 3?
4.
4. Wow, we.
Recognitions.
Oh, yes, recognitions. Well, I don't know about anybody else, but I recognize a really good program out here. And I guess it's going to be one of the things we're going to take a little action on. So is that the first one?
No. Parents and teachers first.
Hmm.
Kellen, do you have any opening comments?
So our first of several recognitions tonight, and just amazing how packed this boardroom is for all the right reasons, would be our Parents as Teachers program. They were recently relocated to the Lawson Early Learning Center, which has been a great move from my perspective. So on behalf of presenting for them would be Keisha Wagner. Keisha, if you'd like to come up, say any comments you'd like to, but otherwise we have a presentation of a certificate for you and that Blue Ribbon Award.
Thank you. I wasn't planning on speaking. But so we just completed and were awarded in October an 18-month process for the Blue Ribbon Award. We were previously a Blue Ribbon Award, and we have to maintain it every year in order to keep that for 5 years, and then we go through the whole process. So really, like every 3.5 years, we start this 18-month process. And you have to meet all 21 essential requirements to be eligible for the process, which we've been able to do every year, and then meet with 80% the quality standards. There's 81 quality standards, and we met it at 99%. So we were awarded the Blue Ribbon again, and we'll continue to strive to meet that every year, all the requirements, and then start the process again in about 3.5 years. So we officially will be awarded the ribbon next October at the national conference. We have 2 staff with me tonight. We've got Jennifer Partridge. She's been a parent educator for about 9 years. And Brittany, who's, I don't know, 6 months-ish? 9. Not 9? Wow, 9 months. Okay. So, and our other one is not here tonight. So we, like I said, we're at Lawson and fully adapting to all that has to offer us there.
Go ahead, Karen.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Leavenworth USD 453 2024 Certificate of Achievement. The certificate is proudly presented to Leavenworth and Fort Leavenworth parents as teachers for their Blue Ribbon Award.
So up next, we have First Sergeant and his group, I believe.
Yep. So if I'm reading this correctly, it is the 6-time national champions. 1SG, would you come up to the microphone, please?
You want me to come up there?
I do. Yes. You're the man I'm looking at.
Where's Coach Edwards? Come on, man. Come on. I get it going on the boat. You know, I have one thing to say besides the kids on here. There's a lot more Raiders than this. There's a lot more. You know, it's not mandatory that I always invite them. I invite them because we're a family. I kept getting emails. First Sergeant, does that mean us that we didn't get in trouble? Listen, we're a family. 42 went, 40 some stayed back. Make sure those 40 will go, and these seniors will be on their way. The one thing that stood out with me, though, real quick, ma'am, is I was at Fort Knox, Kentucky, and there's all these teams lined up. The brigade commander walked up, and he was the guy that was in front of all the parents. And he says, where's the instructor at? So he's that short, bald-headed guy there. And he comes up, and I said, yes, sir. He says, I want you to look back there behind. I said, so what am I looking at? And he goes, look at all that black and yellow. And I said, sir, I'm telling you, the key to success is not just me and her. It's the community, the families. That's the key. That's the number one key in this community. And the one thing I'm afraid of losing is because I don't want those trophies to go to another community. I sort of enjoy them being here in this community and stuff and stuff. Yeah, they're 6-time, and the last since 2017 to the current, they've been second or first. So it's because of these kids here. These kids can, if you have the will to win, you can win. If you don't, you're not winning. You're not winning. But these are my two commanders right here. Our two commanders this past school year. And they're both seniors, and they're about to go on to do bigger and better things in their life. You gonna do it?
Well, First Sergeant, one thing I do have to say is that excellence instills excellence. And between you and Coach Edwards, thank you for doing what you do. Because this is an amazing program, but it's because of what you put into it, your heart and soul and everything else. And I really appreciate what you do for all of our kids.
Well,
So the Certificate of Achievement is proudly presented to the Leavenworth High School JROTC for their 6-time national championship, signed by Mr. Carney and Dr. Adams. Okay, just hold for it.
and some-
Yeah, I knew that. But I mean, are you addressing this? You're addressing this? Oh, I didn't know that was part of the staff recognition. Part of staff recognition. Oh, let's recognize it.
Jake? Yeah, good. So I can picture them too. Thank you. Thank you.
Tom was one of my consultants.
Who?
Captain.
Oh,
One of my consultants.
yeah.
Also, January 11th, we're doing our celebration, and
We'll
I
be there.
invite all of you.
We'll be there.
I sent an email. I'll send it out again, though.
Thank you.
You too, sir.
Thanks, First Sergeant.
Fired up. Thank you very
I
much.
take it no, Wayne, staying. We're going to, one more.
Dr. Adams.
Thank you all for coming out tonight. Have a wonderful evening. I do have 2 more awards. We don't have certificates for these. You're going to find out why here in just a second, because the department that makes those certificates is the same department that's being honored here. So through the Kansas School Public Relations Association. I'm proud to present to you the first of 2 awards. The first of which is an award of excellence in both electronic publication as well as marketing materials. Mrs. Rachel Spears in the back, as well as Mr. Jake Potter. And that is for some of their work with the strategic plan and otherwise in the publications, materials, and so forth that the greater community was able to see. The second is the 2024 Distinguished Service Award, and it goes to the gentleman right there, Mr. Jake Potter. We have a lot to be proud of tonight, as you're well aware.
Absolutely.
And this is just a reminder how that ties back to our strategic plan, as you can see there, with not just recruitment and retention, but also with the family engagement piece. So I think it's important to remind everybody of how that connects back there.
Absolutely. Thank you both.
Thank you all for coming out. Thank you for making the time and space in the meeting for that important recognition.
All right.
Take the night off, Jake. Sometime. Okay, item 5. Executive session for.
Okay. Mr. President, I move we go into executive session to discuss negotiations pursuant to the exception for employer-employee negotiations under the Kansas Open Meeting Act, or KOMA, and that we return to open session in this room at 6:26. The board will invite Dr. Adams, Amy Sloan, Beth Maddox, and KASB attorney David Cunningham to the meeting.
Second.
Got a motion to go into executive session by Mrs. Price, seconded by Mrs. Murphy. All in favor?
Aye.
6-0. Move on.
All right. Do you wish to entertain a motion?
We're going to wait for Dr. Adams.
You don't have to wait for it.
Huh?
You don't have to wait for it.
Okay.
It's not a voting
I
member.
just thought I'd be curious. He'll vote for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Great. I move to extend Dr. Adams' contract through the for the 2026-2027 school year.
Second.
Who's second?
I'll yield to Miss Wilson.
Jessica,
Okay.
did you win?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to extend Dr. Adams' contract to 26-27, correct?
Yes.
And seconded by Mrs. Wilson. All in favor?
Aye.
5-1.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the staffing report as it was presented to us.
Second.
Who's second? Oh, we have a motion to extend, what was it?
Accept the staffing report.
Accept the staff report as presented and seconded by Mrs. Overby. All in favor of this one?
By
We-
Mrs.
Me.
Price.
It's by me.
Good job. You get a pay raise.
Thanks.
Okay, moving on. Been a long night. Where are we? Policy updates?
Yes.
All right, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this tonight because it's a first read by design per our normal protocol. But just some caveats to these. You have 2 policy updates throughout the fiscal year, typically July and December. The July or June typically represents the items that were changed during the latest legislative session. So they put into motion things that statutorily changed or otherwise. The December updates represent after they have been in motion for a while. These are the things that have received frequent questions, needing clarifications, et cetera. So there is not a whole lot of new law changes that are embedded in this side of it. This is more now that it's been put into practice for a semester. Here are the recommended changes that we've seen, needed clarifications, et cetera. Does that make sense? So typical protocol is you present in 1 month, approve in the next. So I would effectively open the window for questions, feedback, et cetera. Jake, help me out. January 13, is that correct? So let's go with the preceding Wednesday, if we can have questions back by then. That allows me enough time to vet those with legal counsel and otherwise. Does that work for everybody?
That should be 8 January.
8 January. Does that work?
Yep.
Questions on anything right now? If you're like me, you need a chance to dive into them in front of your own computer. And so,
Find the third color of
Might as well
font for.
do it.
sure.
We're moving on.
The attempt was made.
Building report.
All right, your building report for this month is from Richard Warren Middle School and Mr. Scott Kessler. So, thank you, Mr. Kessler.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, members of the board. I'm Scott Kessler, the principal at Richard Warren Educational Campus. I also would like to introduce, I know she's with us in attendance tonight, Jennifer Bryan, my associate principal at the Richard Warren campus. On a daily basis, we collaborate together. However, I run the middle school side, the 7-8, and Jennifer Ms. Bryan on a daily basis runs the 5 to 6. But it's been a really great benefit for us to collaborate. We routinely talk on a regular basis, visit each side of the campus on a regular basis. And what has also been a help is if one of us is out of the building, we have somebody who covers the entire campus. And so that's worked out really well for us. Richard Warren Educational Campus, it has the Leavenworth Intermediate School, grades 5 and 6, and the Richard Warren Middle School, grades 7 to 8. And our motto is ensuring high levels of learning for all. Some building information I wanted to share. Wanted to start off with our student numbers. We've been really happy this year compared to last year with our class sizes. And so if you remember right, we said we were not going to take any outside students this year. Basically, a lot of it was, or a huge part of it was just staffing. We didn't know where we're going to be at staff level. On the Leavenworth Intermediate side, we have 397 total students. We have 209 fifth grade students and 188 sixth grade students. So our average class size for fifth grade is just over 22 and sixth grade just over 20. We do have 18 gen ed teachers. There's 9 per grade level. We did start with just 8 sections apiece. We did have a teacher who just needed some experience at the intermediate level, and then we had a late hire after the year was started. And so then we were able to expand or lower those class sizes by creating 2 new sections. And obviously, as you can see, we have 5 specials teachers. On the middle school side, we have 420 students. In 7th grade, 215, and 8th grade, 205. Our average class size for those classes are all just over 16. Obviously, there's a wide range. If you go into ROTC or band or some of those, there'd be a larger class size, and then some that are smaller. But we've been really happy with the smaller class sizes. And as I get into some behavior data later, I think that also has played a part with reducing some behaviors on the middle school side. On the middle school side, we have 16 core teachers, 8 per grade level, and then 12 elective teachers. So on the campus as a whole, we have 817 students. Our focus on campus. Our acronym we use is PRIDE. That means we want students and staff to be prepared, be respectful, have integrity, be disciplined, and engaged. And so one of the things we focused on last year, and especially heading into this year, is the culture of the building for several reasons. As you can see in the pictures, one of the things that the district introduced us to, and I apologize, I don't know who on the district, if it was Dr. Adams or somebody, we passed around a game ball. That's been a huge hit on our campus. That's where a staff member is awarded the game ball by another staff member. So staff members recognizing other staff members, even the students I've noticed, they're like, hey, who's getting the game ball next? So that's been a huge hit. We also do things like class of the month on the intermediate side. That's in the picture in the lower left. They have a championship belt for class of the month. We also do, and I don't have pictures of all of it up here, we do like Pioneer of the Month on the intermediate side. So teachers and staff vote for the kids from every class for Pioneer of the Month. On the middle school side, we also hand out tokens regularly to students who can come in and get a treat from the front office. And on both sides, we have PBIS reward parties, meaning that students have to meet certain criteria every quarter, which includes both some academic requirements, but also mainly some behavior requirements, and then they get to go to a quarterly reward party. Some other things that you'll see on our campus, some pictures up there, a lot of hands-on activities, especially like in our science classes, a lot of engaging classes, engaging activities like in our civics classes on the middle school side. One of the great things we did, Coach Angela Scully on our middle school side, I think they've done this in the past, but just to build some school spirit, at the end of the season, we waited till the end of the season, we had a volleyball players versus football players volleyball game. Huge hit. The kids loved it. The staff loved it. Really built a lot of school spirit on the middle school side there. And so we're really focused on that culture of just a positive school climate and also bringing back school spirit. One of the things we've also done a couple of times this year, especially on the middle school side, that we haven't done, to my understanding, in the last few years, is have some school assemblies. Now, these were geared towards some safety presentations, but we've actually had some school assemblies now where we have like all the 7th graders or all the 8th graders in the gym. And so we're bringing some of those things back. And our goal is to even have more like spirit assemblies and those kind of things on campus. So we're focused on culture. We're also focused on academics. We believe a positive environment will also help us be more successful academically. As I go through the Kansas State Assessment scores, these are from last spring, and the data is per KSDE's website. This information was pulled October 21st. As you can see, and as anybody could see, the scores are not where we want them to be. We do not believe this is a reflection of our students' potential, nor is it on our staff not trying to do the best they can every day. We have some awesome teachers working very hard. Like I said, we're trying to change our culture into a positive culture, reduce behaviors. And my theory is, just like my admin team, we reduce our behaviors, then we should start seeing our academics start to go up. Now, there's a lot of other things involved, obviously, that we're going to do to help raise our test scores. But as you can see, in the orange is level 1 for ELA, so that's 5th through 8th grade there. On a positive note, on the 8th grade side, we have less than 50% scoring in level 1 in the 8th grade. But as you can see in 5th, 6th, and 7th, obviously this indicates we have some work to do on our campus. These are the math spring test scores. As you can see, we're struggling in the math department with our state assessments. Again, this is an indicator that we have some work to do on the math side. So you can see, again, it's 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. The orange is level 1, the yellow is level 2, the green is level 3, and the blue up there is level 4. And these are our science scores from last spring. As you can see, though, a positive 5th grade, we scored less than 50% of our kids actually scored in level 1. We had 27% scoring level 2 in 5th grade and so forth. Obviously, we have some work to do in 8th grade. So what do we do with this? Again, we don't believe this is a reflection of our students' potential. It indicates that we have some work to do, need to put some things in place to help our students be more successful. So we are working on some things across the campus, such as targeted interventions, some curriculum adjustments and resource adjustments, and professional development for teachers and staff. So those are some of the things we're working on in order to help increase our student success. If you remember, I showed you the building numbers. Last year, our 6th grade, and I don't remember the exact number, it was 30 or 31 kids we started with in 6th grade last year. So our class average was really high in 5th grade and 6th grade. 5th grade was high 20s, 6th grade was high 30s. And even the middle school was a little higher than it is now. We're hoping like just having smaller class sizes is going to help us be more successful on our state assessments, because that means our teachers are having more time and better opportunities to meet more individuals than they would in like a class of 30. So we recognize that, this is a challenge for us. As First Sergeant said when he was talking about the ROTC program at Warren campus, we do take that philosophy. It is a community. We also believe that we're going to later this year have a family engagement event where we're going to talk about a lot of different resources in the community. And some of those resources are academic, such as the libraries, the library resources and such. And also some ways parents can just help out at home and just be more involved at school. So we do believe it's just a community effort in order to help our students be more successful. As we head into it, so we've just reviewed this, the state assessment scores. Now we're going to go into our behavior data. Again, my philosophy is if we can reduce the behaviors, we'll see an increase in academic success. From 24 to 25, here's the data that was pulled per our school district on November 29th. So this is for the middle school side. So the year to date, to the end of November, we had a 52.1% decrease in the number of incidents. That's the number of suspensions, whether it's out of school or in school suspensions. We also had a 51.5% decrease in the number of office referrals compared to last year. So if you look at the numbers, obviously we still have several office referrals coming in, but the number overall has decreased dramatically on the middle school side. Again, That's an effort from our staff, our everywhere from the top down administrative team. I've tasked them with being more consistent with consequences and how they handle behaviors. The implementation of safe and civil school and champs, we're working on being consistent, and we're striving to continue to be consistent with classroom expectations and classroom management procedures. And so a lot of that, I believe, contributes to the decrease in some of the behaviors you see. Is it where we want it to be? No. But we have seen, I think it's safe to say, we've seen with our new aggressive policy on physical aggression, we've seen physical aggression on the middle school side down this year a lot compared to what it was last year. So that was one of our major concerns. The thing I'm working on with the administrative team now is, what are the next behaviors that we need to address? One of the biggest things we're getting on both sides of campus is classroom disruptions and disrespect to teachers, talking back, those kind of things. So those are like the next step that my admin team, those are the next things we're looking at is, okay, we lowered our physical aggression. Now what are the next behaviors so teachers are not interrupted in the classroom? On the intermediate side, 5th and 6th grade, compared to last year, we've actually had a 20.9% increase in incidents. That means we have suspended more students than we did last year. Referrals, we've had about a 3.7% decrease. The incidents, as you can see, just to give you the numbers, we had 172 incidents of suspension at that time last year. This year, we've had 208. We have had some things go on campus. We have gotten really aggressive with our weapons or facsimile of weapons policy. So some of those numbers are tied into that. And we're just working on some different things as far as structure of the building and being consistent with safe and civil schools and champs. Our staff, our teachers are working very hard on making sure they're implementing those consistently. And something Miss Bryan and her team over there have came up with is they just started this recently. One of the things we noticed we were lacking over there is the reintegration part when they come back from a suspension. So we have now a triage program we're trying out on the intermediate side. And if it's successful, we'll look at it campus-wide. But what we're doing is those students that we are sending home on a suspension, what are we doing when they come back through our doors? Too many times in the past, they just showed back up, they went right back to class. Now they're actually working with an adult. We're choosing students like who needs a triage or who needs a triage on a regular basis. And so that's what we're doing to hopefully reduce the amount of suspensions and the repeat offenders on the intermediate side and both the middle school side as well.
Scott, so since their incidents and referrals are pretty high, are the repeat offenders a pretty high percentage of that number?
Yes. So on the intermediate side, 47% of OSS and ISS are repeat offenders. And then on the middle school side, 50% are repeat offenders. So yeah, a lot of those numbers, what you see are repeat offenders. And that's why we're really hoping the triage system and getting those students what they need when they reintegrate. We're trying everything we can to make sure they're more successful when they come back.
Would you rather me
Yes.
ask this question after you're done with everything, or since we're on this topic, ask it now?
You can ask it now.
Okay, so whoever the persons are that are helping you take care of this triage for these incidents and reintegration, what is that pulling them away from that they would have normally been doing in the classroom, and then pulling them away to take care of that one student to integrate it? Kind of like the cost effectiveness and how what's being diminished someplace else versus, I know you're reintegrating them and that's going to be great and hopefully everything's perfect, but who's losing and what because of that?
The triage actually only takes a few minutes.
Okay.
So when we say we're triaging, it's not like we're pulling them for an hour or two out of a class.
Okay.
It's really just so they can make that connection with an adult. And then they know like, hey, there's adults here who care about you. And then we can actually
Kind of like a check-in.
kind of like a check-in. Yeah. So it's not that we're pulling them out of like a core class for a lengthy amount of time.
Okay, thank you.
I've heard some rumble about the referrals sort of being discouraged more than they would have been in the past. Is there any, do you
They've
have
been what?
sort of like teachers feel like they're not being heard. Like if they have a problem, they're being told like basically, it's okay, you can do this, kind of thing, instead of it being more addressed seriously. Do you see any of that, or do you think that?
Like, would they be hesitant to do a referral?
Yeah.
I don't think they're hesitant to do a referral, but I could be wrong. I don't want to speak for all the
Yeah,
teachers.
sure.
I can only tell you that I have had teachers come to me with that concern. And I know that Miss Bryan and I then talk.
Okay.
And then whether it's on the middle school side or the intermediate side, my process is I follow up with whatever admin handled the referral or referrals. We have grade level assistant principals. So that's who we usually start with. And one of the things, even with the admin team I've worked on, is we need to be consistent with how we handle them.
Sure.
And then also one thing I'm stressing with the admin team is if we're not sure or we need more information, to make sure we actually follow up with that teacher. And on the flip side of it, I've stressed to some teachers, make sure you give the details, or make sure you're not. I have stressed to teachers who have come to me not to be afraid to put in a referral.
I don't know if there's a way, but if there would be a way to do some kind of a survey,
Mhm.
maybe even building anonymous or something to where there's no fear of, retribution or anything,
Yeah.
but just
I'm getting the same feedback.
to make sure that they, you could say just even a pretty, easy question. Do you feel all of your concerns about student behavior were addressed consistently? Do you feel there's a need for a way to approach this differently, report differently, just trying to pull that out of the group without it having to be like a one-on-one, where someone might feel it's confrontational or something like that. So,
And I can reemphasize too, that'd be easy to address. From my standpoint, I'm not saying easy for the teacher, but I can reemphasize to teachers that they know I have an open door policy. So if they ever feel like, because I've told teachers that have come to me, that I'm glad they came to me. If they felt like they were submitting referrals and nothing was being done, or if they didn't think the appropriate thing happened, to come and see me. And I do, though, I tell them, I follow up, though, with the admin side as well. Like, hey, I get all the facts and information. What happened? What are we doing? And then if there is something I need to talk to my admin team about, we do have those behind the scenes that people don't see outside of our offices about how can we be more consistent with behaviors.
you know what I mean? We want to see those numbers go down.
Yeah.
But we don't want to see them go down because there's pressure to see them go down. We want to see them
Right.
go down because it's actually, everyone's actually doing better, right? We're
Right.
all rising
Yeah.
together, kind of thing.
Yeah. Yes.
I would just like to add, sort of on that same topic. I went to the Henry Leavenworth Site Council and was very encouraged by some of the information on the behaviors. One thing that they were talking about is when those referrals come in, because they're keeping track of that data, that they're able to then push support even before sometimes it's asked for. And I thought that was interesting because a lot of the complaints that you hear from teachers is, I don't have any support. I send the referral, the kid comes back,
Mhm.
there's nothing's done. But if teachers are encouraged to go ahead and do those referrals,
Mhm.
then you are getting that data. And sometimes you may know when that, you start to see a pattern, or maybe that particular teacher needs some support, or a student needs some support for those repeat offenders.
Yeah.
But I thought that was an interesting point that came up through that discussion. So I wouldn't want to see referrals be discouraged, because I think you can get some information from that.
I absolutely agree. So if we have staff members, I just need to reemphasize that they shouldn't be afraid to submit a referral. Some of the things we've done, if you walk around our campus, on both sides, you'll see like my middle school APs. We have portable desks. You'll see them out into the collaboration spaces. And then I know on the intermediate side, they do the same thing. So we're trying to push admin out into the building so they're seen, they're right there in case something happens. And so that's one of the things we're doing too. As far as like the behaviors, I will say sometimes if you look at the sheer number of referrals, I believe that's 700 and something. on the intermediate side. So we are getting a high number of referrals. So I will tell you from the administrative side of it, when you're sitting there that day and you're trying to get out in the building, trying to get out in the classroom, there are some days that admin, even with the admin team we have, it's a pretty busy day because you're just one referral after another after another.
Are you then taking that data and looking at that so you can see those
Yeah.
patterns?
Yeah, we're trying. I think the sheer number of some of the behaviors we see, it just is overwhelming for everybody, for the whole system as a whole. And so that's why I believe in systems working together. Like you're trying to solve it from multiple angles. Are we implementing safe and civil school champs to have a classroom management procedures? Are they referring and filling out the referrals when there is a need for an office referral? Are we being consistent as admin when we do get an office referral? So I think all those things should work together. But yeah, if you actually look at the number and how many days we've been in school and you have over 700 office referrals, I mean, that's a lot of office referrals per day. And it's pretty even, like meaning like on the intermediate side, it's about 50-50. So it's not like one particular grade level, it's 5th and 6th grade, filling in those numbers for office referrals. But I appreciate what you said. Yeah, I never want staff to be afraid to fill out an office referral.
So in on that, and this is kind of touchy, so some of the feedback that I've gotten, and it wouldn't just be your campus complex. It's this one. That a few of the teachers have mentioned to me, if it's not to have the hesitancy of the referral, that sometimes they can actually, and I'm not saying it's intentful. I'm not saying they're accusing it's intentful. So I want to be very mindful of how I use any of this language, but that they at times feel like they are being blamed for the kids' behaviors, that they should be managing things better. And then if everyone's already frustrated because you've already got 20 kids a day on an incidence with referrals or something like that, and then suddenly, well, it's your class, it's always your class, that can give them a sense of, desperation and defeatment. And, that just was really worrisome and concerning for me too, because that's just going to bleed through and infect the rest of the culture as well. So if we can body that we're not tearing them down out of frustration because of all this is happening too, that could be helpful as well.
Okay. And you said that was just from multiple campuses?
It is.
Yeah.
But I've heard it from all of them.
Yeah. I think part of it is, and this is just my opinion and my observations, is I think just the whole system sometimes does get stressed. When I say the whole system, teachers, administrators, because sometimes what happens is, let's say a teacher fills out an office referral. We still owe the student due process. So we have to get the student side of it. We have to document back to the teacher to ask for more details. At the same time, to be consistent with CHAMPS or be consistent with safe and civil schools methodologies, sometimes we do go back to the teachers. So I totally understand what you're saying. I don't want teachers to feel defeated. At the same time, too, we're trying to build up that culture of, being able to accept constructive feedback. Just like my admin team and I, we talk to each other and I tell them we're going to hold each other accountable. Right. If you think I didn't do something right as principal, or I don't think you did something right as an AP, behind closed doors, we're going to talk about it. So I do know I've had some of those situations where hopefully I've mended those relationships with some staff, meaning like they understood, like, we're not blaming you, but we're going to follow through and say, hey, are you following some of the things we're putting in place? Just like when I talk to my admin team, are you sticking to the best practices we talked about in this situation? Like, let's say it's how many days of a suspension. We need to be consistent. If it's the same infraction, how many days we suspend a student across the campus. So I totally understand that. Again, I don't want teachers to feel like they can't fill out office referrals.
And maybe the survey will help. If something's in there like that, to where they, even if it's someone anonymously, to where, okay, we've had these incidences and this is how I felt. And then maybe it could be something that can be worked on after that.
And maybe we did do a survey. That's why I know one of the biggest problems we're facing now, just from observations and from office referrals and a survey, is classroom disruptions and the insubordination, like the disrespect to teachers. At least that's what our survey data in the last month here. Like we just surveyed the intermediate side a while back, and those were the top 2 behaviors now that we're seeing that are disrupting class. But as you mentioned, maybe we need to add on there, like, their comfort level of, do you feel comfortable going to the admin, or do you feel comfortable speaking to one of the principals about, hey,
Especially if you've been beat down by
yeah,
a student, and
yeah.
the first thing you do as soon as you report it, it's like, well, maybe if you'd handled it better.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. But again, I can reemphasize that with the staff, and we're always there to support the teachers, and we're always there. But we are, like I said, when a student does get in trouble, we also offer them, we need to offer them due process. And sometimes that does require us to go back to a teacher and ask more detail. And I think sometimes, like I said a few minutes ago, I think sometimes with that number of referrals, the whole system, my admin team, the front office staff, the teachers are all overwhelmed. And so I know stress levels are high. And so everybody's feeling a little defeated, and we have to, especially as leaders in the building, regroup, come together, make sure that we're doing everything consistently and to the best of our abilities. I hope that makes sense. But
How often do you have a behavioral psychologist within the building at all?
well, we have a school psych on both sides of the building.
Daily?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so then we also have
you're getting that
RBTs.
extra reinforcement
Yeah.
daily.
Yeah. So we do have a lot of resources and a lot of things in place. I think what you're just seeing, especially like with that intermediate data, is the sheer number of behaviors that our teaching staff and admin staff are dealing with.
Do you believe the psychs are helpful? How do you feel like they fit into the picture?
I think they're wonderful. I think they're doing everything they can to help us. Again, I think it's the sheer number of office referrals coming in, because if you think about that, how many office referrals you're dealing with a day, pulling a student in, doing due process, then especially if you have to refer them to what we call the SIT team, our intervention team. There's a lot to do within that referral. And as you can see, our suspensions are up. So we're trying to be more consistent, and we are suspending students if we feel it's necessary. So I'd say what we usually do too is prioritize the main behaviors. But again, like I said earlier, I know I probably sound like a broken record, but we do realize classroom disruptions right now are one of our biggest issues.
Yeah.
Oh, the scores show that.
Yeah.
The scores show.
Yeah. That being said, some celebrations. Jean Hart is our art teacher on the intermediate side. She's a wonderful art teacher. She is actually our representative from the school district for Elementary Teacher of the Year. You should see the wonderful things she does in art with our intermediate school, our 5th and 6th graders. Great art projects. Her classroom is right up the stairs as you walk in the school. And she goes above and beyond to get students interested in art, does a variety of projects. And then also, Richard Warren Middle School was voted the best middle school in the Leavenworth Times, best of the best this year. So that was a huge accomplishment. And that is because of our teachers, our staff, from everybody in the building. That's a huge accomplishment when it's voted on by the public to recognize you for that. Some sustained focus and opportunities for improvement. One of the things we did is AVID. We made campus wide this year. So with AVID, we're actually focusing on collaboration and organization. So what we're working on with our students through AVID, and we're building a multi-year plan and roadmap, but we're developing their organizational skills and collaboration skills. Those are the things we're focusing on right now. Safe and civil schools and champs, you've probably heard a lot of over the last several months, but we are maintaining our consistent implementation of that. So I routinely ask teachers to review their classroom management plan just to be consistent. And so one of the things that you'll hear me say a lot, especially in my administrative meetings, and I know even in staff meetings, is be consistent. Make sure we're consistent with how we handle behaviors, and make sure, like my admin team, we're consistent with how we handle consequences. Positive behavior incentives. I talked about a little bit about what we have in place already. We're going to sustain those, and we're also always brainstorming ideas on how to recognize even more students. We talked a lot about the behaviors now, and the 50% of the students are repeat offenders. We also never want to forget those students who come in and never get an office referral, never cause any problems for that teacher. How are we recognizing those students and how we turn that? Magic School AI. That's not for students. We're doing that for teachers. So that's a resource for teachers that will help them with lesson planning, developing rubrics. So it's an extra resource we're focusing on. Staffing. Obviously, the better the school culture, less behaviors. I'm hoping to retain as many staff as possible. We have some awesome teachers. I can't speak highly enough about our teachers on our campus. And I'm talking about our whole staff, our paras, our custodial staff, our sped staff, teachers, my admin team. I really feel like we have a really good staff put together, and it shows. They're working really hard on a daily basis and dealing with a lot to make sure that they're doing the best they can for our students. And then obviously student attendance is a concern of ours for a variety of reasons. We're going to still focus on better student attendance. I won't go into detail about all the different things that, we have some challenges for student attendance, but that is something that's on our radar. So those are the things we're focusing on besides just overall, like I said, we're really focused on reducing behaviors and in turn, increasing our academic success.
I like to see that positive behavior, in the top 3 on your focus slide there, just because there's something to be said for you get more of what you focus on, right?
Right. Any other questions?
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Hang in there, Scott.
Thank you.
Okay, number 10, budget process update. You got that?
Thank you, Mr. Carney. I'll attempt to be as brief and succinct as I can. I think we have a slide deck prepared here for you. Thank you, sir. All right, so let's first start with the context of where we are at. You can go ahead. You have largely heard the broad overview to this point. I wanted to get into some more detail and nuance tonight. So the first is just to understand the gravity of the situation. In round numbers, you will see there our general fund budget for this year is $30.8 million. And then, of course, the LOB is a corollary of that at 10 and change. You're going to see a reduction to both of those for next year. You have heard, and I think we've been sharing a gross total of $5 million. And you're likely doing the arithmetic going, those two don't add up to that. This is a multifaceted problem. The first of which is the pure loss of revenue. And what's on the screen is a loss of revenue due to students and the weightings that come with those students. So in round numbers, 200 plus students exited our system this year. That comes on the heels of 100 plus students last year. And round numbers, our system has lost approximately 8 to 9% of our student enrollment in 2 years. So that will create the majority of the lost revenue. Then we have what we believe are anticipated or increased expenditures that are coming our way. Some of which are in our control, some of which are not. Probably the one that percolates immediately for me is health insurance. We are likely expecting to see a large health insurance increase to our premium. Property insurance, other things associated with inflation, you get the idea. So again, to be clear, half of this is in the anticipated increased expenses. The other half is in the loss of true revenue. Let's go to the third slide, if we would, please. As you could probably imagine, we want to engage a number of different people here. So this work started back at the end of Q1, and it's going to take you all the way through the February board meeting. You will be asked to make some very tough decisions at the February board meeting. So I want to prepare you now for the gravity of those decisions. As you'll see there, you've got a number of different stakeholders that are going to be engaged along the way. Some of those meetings have already taken place, and then we'll continue when we come back from Christmas break. So I'm not going to hit each one of those points, but I just wanted you to see that it's something about almost every week here. And many thanks to our CFO, Mrs. Maddox, and our Executive Director of HR, Amy Sloan, as they are largely leading this work. But please know that there are many other players involved along the way as they help facilitate those meetings and or get that insight and that valuable input. What we're really asking people to do at the end of the day is what are the creative out-of-the-box things that we've not yet thought about that could really provide a either large boon in revenue or likely a large savings on the expenditure side. Okay? What questions are there about the process? I want to hit a couple other high points and then, all right. So the first thing I want to hit on tonight is we did not spend our way into this situation. And you're going to hear me continue to repeat that. In fact, we are in a very good position thanks to Mrs. Maddox and company and her predecessor. So I'm thankful for that. This came as a direct result of the loss of students and student enrollment. By losing nearly 9%, that is the reason why we have the issue. The second to that is certainly the increased expense side of that equation that I broke down. But I just wanted to get that out there very clearly, that this problem did not happen because of overspending by the board, overspending by administration, et cetera. How we will get out of it is we will underspend our way out of it. Does that make sense? You'll have to make strategic expense-related decisions in order to get back to a palatable position. The second point I want to make tonight is you got to attack this twofold. You've got to attack it from the revenue side as well as from the expense side. I think the expense side is well explained at this point, so I'm going to focus more on the revenue. From the revenue side, you do have unlocked revenue that I think needs to become front and center for us as a conversation. The first of which is something we're already actively seeking, which is the increase of impact aid. That is something that's somewhat nuanced to our district, but could become a decent size, I'm going to make an emphasis on decent amount of additional revenue that's not been realized to this point. When you are in these heavily governmental or military associated districts, you see more impact aid that flows. The nuance to that is we've got to have that process and that data collection that comes with that as the predecessor to that. Does that make sense? The second revenue, of course, is related to our capital outlay fund and decisions related to revenue neutral. I realize that revenue neutral is made in September, but I want to bring that back front and center because it's important in the context of this conversation. It is unrealized revenue for you. And then the third, and really where my focus is starting to shift, is the students. Students are the primary source of revenue. And I believe that there may be some students that if we can improve some of the things within our system, may repatriate back to our district. And so we're kind of attacking that revenue threefold. Does that make sense? What questions are there?
No questions.
All right.
Continue.
What's that?
Continue.
Okay. So I'm going to come back to you in January, and you're going to begin to see the picture begin to get a little more clear. You're going to get to see the bigger buckets of what we are beginning to deal with. I want to make it very clear for everybody that's listening tonight, we are not entertaining the RIF process. So let me say that again. We are not entertaining the RIF process. Okay? At this time, we do not have a reason to believe that.
Can you explain that for people that might not know exactly what you're talking about?
Absolutely. RIF stands for reduction in force. That is when the district or the system actively begins to notify people that they are not coming back. Please understand this separates any performance related issues. Okay. But at this time, we do not have any indication that we need to enter into reduction in force. The second caveat to that is I have instituted what I would call a hiring frost. Now you might say, Kellen, it's called a hiring freeze. I understand. But if we get to a point where we've lost so many math teachers, I can't continue to not allow those positions. So at some point we will get to where certain departments, certain positions have to be refilled. Does that make sense? But generally speaking, the majority of the positions that separate right now will likely stay on hold. We are going to realize the natural attrition in order to cut back on the FTE.
Can you talk just a little bit more about that? Because we've been on a pretty active mission to get like our long-term sub positions filled.
Yep.
Change what our
And you're pointing out the irony, contradictory, whatever you want to say, of that messaging, and I fully understand that. So first, not every position is going to allow this to occur. There are going to be certain ratios, people-teacher ratio-wise, staff to supervisor ratio-wise. You get the idea, where it will require it to fill. So I cannot say blanket that every position is not going to be filled. That's why hiring frost was the better moniker, in my opinion. But if and when a separation occurs, we are going to take a deeper look than we probably ever have of whether or not that position can sit on the sideline. The beauty of this, and I want to emphasize this, those positions can always come back down the road. Just because you close it for the next fiscal year does not mean the position is lost forever. Does that make sense? We will likely see third grade sections go down as more kids go to fourth grade. And then the next year you rehire as the fourth grade gets smaller. Does that make sense? So,
And like with Kessler's presentation, he was stating we were working towards have achieved some smaller class sizes and places and things that are hopefully going to help us to improve.
absolutely. Yeah. Please hear me say, I don't want anybody thinking we're stopped. We've ceased hiring in general. Rather, it's as separations occur, those become much more strategic decisions for us. Does that make sense?
Because we still want I'm assuming, we just had a job fair
Mhm.
success.
Absolutely.
So I want to make sure that we're putting all the information out fairly to anybody that's watching this portion of the meeting. And I don't want, I want there to be as little room for miscommunication as possible. So as much as you can communicate with the staff and community about what exactly we are talking about, I think these discussions are hard because anytime we start having these conversations, it's somewhat fair for everyone to be feeling panicky. And so I wanted to make sure that, as much as we can communicate specifically, we do that just to we want everyone to feel secure working and building USD 453. So
I think you're on point there, Mrs. Reed. I can appreciate as a staff member, you would maybe have some anxiety right now hearing $5 million. I mean, the gravity of that number, right? And that's why I wanted to emphasize tonight the idea that we were not entertaining RIF, that we're going to use natural attrition. So thank you for that. I think
Thank
it's
you.
on point. Anything else I can clarify or possibly demystify?
I would just ask if anyone does have a concern. I personally feel like you have a pretty open door policy. And so I would just ask that we don't have side conversations. We don't affect our culture negatively. We're very professional and we just come straight to the source is what I would ask of our staff. So
I would second that. Thank you. If there is one lesson to learn from this, from others that have gone before this, it is the communication that occurs throughout the process. I cannot emphasize that enough. And so what we cannot have is false narratives or assumptions that are out there. So please, to Mrs. Reed's point, if there are clarifications that could be provided, please lean on me. I'm happy to make sure that we clarify any of that.
thank you.
Emails on the website.
I'm sorry?
Emails on the website.
It is, yes. All right, so I'll come back in January, and then bigger decisions are coming your way in February. Remember, we close this fiscal year at the end of June, and we need to bring everything to a closure for purposes of letting people know, good, bad, or otherwise, what the impact is to their department, their site. You get the idea, right? So, thank you.
Thank you.
Item 11, Integrity Energy Partners still here?
All right, so 11 was strategically after 10. Hopefully I've set some of the stage. In the context of everything we're entertaining budget-wise, it's not just people. There's other savings to be had as well. And we believe we have some good preliminary, I want to emphasize preliminary data that would indicate there's some savings to be had on the energy side. From some of those initial stakeholder meetings, this was one of the topics that probably percolated more often than not is, hey, is there savings to be had that would not have a direct impact to classrooms, teachers, et cetera. So I want to thank Integrity Partners for being here tonight. And with that, we'll turn over the microphone. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Adams and the board. My name is John Coleman. I'm Vice President of Business Development for Integrity Energy Partners. And we're going to talk about this preliminary energy assessment that we did for the district a couple of months ago and the findings that came from that. I'm using the mouse here. Oh, scroll. Okay, there we go. I'll get the hang of this. So with me, I have John Wixon, who is our Director of Technical Services. John did a lot of the site work and site walk through the facilities. We also have Hannah Parker, who's one of our energy engineers. She is going to coordinate as the project engineer on this project, and then do a lot of the site work as well, on-site investigation. Brian Little is not here this evening. He is going to serve as business development executive on the project out of our Lennox office. His son had a birthday this evening, and so we let him take care of that and skip the meeting. So real quickly, I'm going to do an introduction and jump into the preliminary assessment. So Integrity Partners is a division of Nabholz Construction. We all are familiar with Nabholz, done a lot of work at the district over the years. We are 100% wholly owned subsidiary of Nabholz and often refer to ourselves as the energy division. We've been around since 2007 doing projects just like this, energy efficiency work, solar, battery storage type projects that reduce energy consumption in commercial scale facilities. We are NAESCO accredited, which is the National Association of Energy Services Companies. All this means is that we, every 5 years, submit 10 of our projects to this national organization for audit to look at the pricing component for our projects as well as the savings that we're projecting to make sure that we're doing what we say we do. So we take this accreditation very seriously and are proud of that designation. We do have a lot of K-12 experience. As you're familiar with Nabholz, we've done a lot of new construction, renovation work, and energy work like this, which are very similar to renovation type projects. At a small scale, you can see a number of the projects in Kansas. We also do this work in Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma, really across the Mid-South. So I'm very familiar, and a lot of that experience that we have is being presented in this preliminary assessment as well. We're bringing that to the district. So preliminary analysis report, this is just a real high level overview and why we're here. What this is just a walkthrough of facilities and looking at a high level the systems that are in place, the age of system, the type of system, anything that's consuming energy or water in the facilities. And it could be from your water fixtures in your bathrooms to the irrigation at the ball fields. It can be LED lighting to HVAC systems when we're doing this high level walkthrough. And then that really feeds into what the opportunity is at a high level, again, what we think is possible. So we looked at 10 facilities, about just under 800,000 square feet, identified the electricity, gas, and water utilities as well, and any incentive programs that may be available for the project. We also collected utility data over a 12-month period so that we could see what the utility spend was and how that was allocated per building. So based on the 12 months of data that we received, you're spending just under $1 million in energy and operational costs related to your buildings there. What we identified in the facility, we're projecting anywhere from a 15 to 25% reduction in that energy use is available to you in the form of a project. That would result in anywhere from 143,000 to about 240,000 a year in energy cost savings. So not inconsequential opportunity here for you as a district. And then you can see the 20-year savings period as well. Essentially what we're doing with this project is looking at that just under $1 million spend. So this is a graphical representation would be the annual energy and operational expense on the left-hand side. What we are trying to do is come in and identify energy conservation measures that would reduce that cost, provide a guaranteed savings associated with those measures, and then use a portion of that savings to pay for the cost of the project, but then freeing up the remainder of that savings for anything the district needs to use it for. Okay, so these are funds that you're already spending on utility costs, and we're trying to redirect them to cover these energy efficiency upgrades, so to speak. So it'll be things like LED lighting. We know you haven't done an LED conversion. We're going from, in this case, we'd be going from typically 32 watt lamps down to 12 to 15 watt bulbs. So significant energy reduction there, about 60%. Water conservation, as we were doing the walkthrough, a lot of high flow fixtures throughout the facility. I want to emphasize that we're not going to zero flow. We're not being really aggressive. We're simply upgrading, would upgrade to code on something like this, but still can be significant savings. Both LED lighting and water conservation are consistently seen generate a lot of savings and cash flow for school districts. And so this is something that we focus on first. Solar historically has been deemed expensive, but there are incentives that are available. And so we want to present the economics of this. Under the right scenarios, these can look really strong and have strong return on investment, but also set you up for producing 30 years of energy and reducing or hedging against future increases in cost. So we're going to present that as well. HVAC demand response is something that is somewhat unique to the state of Kansas. There's legislation in place that allows districts to participate in demand response programs, either with the utility or at the regional transmission level, Southwest Power Pool level. Basically on days where peak energy consumption is occurring at a broad scale throughout the community, if you tap into this program, y'all could agree to reduce your energy consumption at those times and get incentivized to do so. So those programs exist, and we want to investigate the opportunity that is there. What we did notice during the preliminary assessment is that you have really strong control systems for HVAC and fairly new HVAC equipment as well, which lends itself to participate in these types of programs. And then lastly, over the course of the meetings that we've had with the administrative team, there was a focus on student engagement and education. So tying the project to education curriculum as well. It's something that we've done a lot with K-12 districts. At the heart of what y'all do, you're educators and focused on that. And there are really great opportunities to fold the project into that role as well. Just a few examples that we have. So top left is a solar array we built outside of a high school. It happened to be located next to an agriculture Future Farmers of America program where they were running sheep at an adjacent property. And now they run sheep at our solar farm to keep the grass down. But the students get to engage both on the solar and grazing in the FFA program that they have. Top right is a solar suitcase. It's a custom solar suitcase that we've developed where you have these small solar modules that the students can handle. It's low voltage to like an LED light or a fan, so they can take it apart, put it back together, put the solar module in the sun and see how it operates the LED lighting or the fan itself, and just get that education component. It's really great for 5th and 6th graders and fits well within that typical energy curriculum at that level. Bottom right is a waste audit that is done where we simply go in with students at the elementary level and take the waste that has been generated, separate it, and just educate them on how waste is being produced and opportunities to reduce that waste. None of this is cookie cutter programs. It's going to be visiting with your staff, engaging interest, and how it might fit in the work that they're already doing, and simply enhance the offering of curriculum and the goals that they have in the classroom. But it's something we always want to bring those options to the table and tying the project to that curriculum. So next step, and what we're here to do tonight, is ask for approval for an investment grade audit. So what we've done at this point, again, is just a high level walkthrough and just kind of a visual of what's there. But ultimately, in order to really get to cost and savings, we need to do a granular count of the lights that are in all of your facilities, the water fixtures, et cetera. And so that's what we're proposing tonight. It would be a complete scope development over a 90-day period. We would come up with guaranteed pricing and the guaranteed annual savings associated with those energy conservation measures, inventory of equipment, metering, et cetera. Throughout this process, we're going to be engaging staff and administration and determining what we're finding and what we think is possible. We develop a menu of these energy conservation measures on cost and savings, and then work with the team to identify what the project is that's palatable for the district before coming back to you for approval. So that's the phase that we really need to enter into next. We're also going to be identifying any rebates or grants that are available to the district to buy down the cost of the project. And then as we see the project start to come together, the shape of the project, size, et cetera, we'll be working with Dr. Adams and either the financial advisor or local finance options to determine what options are available for the district for the project itself. So that's the investment grade audit. As far as the details go, the timeline, if we can get approval this evening, we're ready to start deploying data loggers tomorrow so that we can start to collect data on lighting systems, HVAC, et cetera. This is simply the burn hours of the lights, like how long are they on throughout the day? How long are your HVAC systems running? Are they achieving set temperatures in classrooms, et cetera? So we can get that data and then come back in January and really start counting, doing this granular audit as I described. The audit fee itself is $58,380, what we're proposing. This is a deferred fee. So part of the reason that we do the preliminary assessment is to demonstrate at a minimum the project that's available to you we know is going to be this LED lighting project and probably the water conservation project. Those are going to look really strong economically. The savings generated from those is going to more than cover the cost of the audit and the cost of those measures to implement. And so we don't want to ask you to enter into this audit agreement without knowing, being really confident that there's something on the back end. And we know that LED lighting and water is going to be there. We do defer the cost of the audit. So we go through and do the full audit without charging for it. At the end, once we provide the final report, as long as we match something close to what we've found in the preliminary assessment, that we're generating, that you've got these projects available to you, you can choose at that point to go forward with implementation. And then we would roll the audit, the cost of the audit into the project. Even if you just implement one measure, you decide to do LED lighting, we'll roll the cost of the audit into that. If you chose at that point to say you didn't want to move forward with the project, we know the savings are there, but we're not ready to do it at this time, then you would pay us the cost of the audit fee, which is the $58,000 number. Now, I will say we recognize the position that you're in, as Dr. Adams described in the previous segment. And so we've been really intentional with this audit fee. As we went through and did the preliminary assessment, as I mentioned, we noticed that your control system is largely in really good shape, and your HVAC equipment is largely in good shape. And so we're not going to do as deep a dive, spend as much time there. And so we've been able to reduce our fee to this number and really focus on the measures as I've described before. We're still going to look at those and get that into the inventory, but we're not going, if you had consistently 15 to 20 year systems in place, we would be doing a lot more work on that side. And so we've been able to reduce the fee to this point as well. So we're trying to be very intentional and work with you in this process, recognizing the situation that you're in.
Would our maintenance department have a lot of schematics for the building to help in that process?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Our maintenance department, I mean, I would think they'd have a lot of schematics on all the buildings that maybe ease the process as far as getting, like, they know this building got 800 lights in it.
Yes, absolutely. So
Mhm.
part of one of the early things we'll do in the IGA phase, the audit phase, is a kickoff meeting with facilities team and talk through the pain points that they have, the systems that are in place, and corroborating what a lot of what we saw during the preliminary assessment. And then obviously working with them throughout the audit as well. They have a lot of knowledge and system knowledge that we want to capture as part of the report.
But yes, to your question, we should have site plans, floor plans, et cetera, on all of our sites.
Was this someone that the board, requested to be brought in?
I don't believe the board requested this. Rather, this was, I would say, a consistent theme that started to percolate early with several of our different stakeholder groups, whether that was internally or otherwise, of, hey, let's really look at, is there energy savings to be had? But I do not recall a singular board member or the collective board. Rather, I would say this just represents what we've already heard early from the field.
I do know 7 years ago when I came on the board and we were working on the bond issue, one of my things I did ask about when we were going to reconstruct Lawson, building the sixth grade center, I talked about solar. I talked about trying to find ways to minimize the cost on electricity, and was met with one, it would change the price of the bond. And that the solar panels wouldn't be able to handle a bad hailstorm and various other reasons. So, I mean, I know it's been mentioned before, even as all the building process went through all those buildings. on that. There are some of these things I think that could have already have been handled when we were in those processes of revamping the buildings. So it's kind of sad that it's got some of the discussion now after inflation. It's like the price is up on many of these things since then.
I would have been thinking that our facilities director would have all these things in mind. I struggle with the implication that our outgoing facilities director wouldn't have made some recommendations if this was as large of a deal as is being implied. And you talked about the initial fee, whatever it was, 53,000 or whatever, potentially being able to be covered if we move forward. But what I would like to see is a lot more data supporting where this has been done in other districts that look like ours, where we're not in a situation, where we've maintained facilities, we have updated equipment and things like this, where your end goal pricing structure, which you're going to recommend, pays itself off, as well, because personally, what I see is a lot of green push and then a lot of, oh, that bulb actually doesn't have a longer lifespan or whatever the case is, or even in auto manufacturing. And then we spend a whole lot of money doing things that don't really pan out for anybody and they're not actually really green. And then we're just kind of back where we were, maybe even in worse shape. And so that would be my concern with doing something like this. I actually think it's kind of out of pocket right now with where we are as a district and our financial situation.
I share some of those concerns because I was just looking through your website and stream of consciousness, jotting down things, and I just would. This is pretty expensive to go through, but are you saying at the end then you would give us a list of projects that you would recommend, and if we went forward with that, then we're not. I guess. I just don't want to be in a position where we're putting out money and, a lot of these projects, like Ms. Reed was saying, aren't so green, end up costing a lot of money. And then I also wonder, just looking through some of the guaranteed costs or cost savings, I mean, how do you do that with market prices?
So, you could take LED lighting, for example. We know a significant amount of the district is still using the T8 fluorescent lamps, which are 32-watt lamps. The LEDs that would be installed that are widely used, they're ubiquitous in any new construction projects now and are widely used in retrofit projects. We've done millions and millions of square feet with LED lighting. Would be anywhere from 12 to 15 watts or less, depending on the situation. So that's a 60% reduction right there. It's a pretty basic technology upgrade. It's not really related to an environmental push per se, but simply what is the economic savings. Evergy also has recently announced new rebates in Kansas that hadn't existed before for LED lighting retrofits as well. And so we would maximize those rebates also to get a return on investment. So when I talk about guaranteed cost and guaranteed savings, after we go in and count all of the fixtures that we recommend for upgrade, we would give you a cost associated with that upgrade. And then we would give you a guaranteed annual energy savings associated with the upgrade, right? And that's just for LED lighting. That's as an example. Typically, the payback period on those is anywhere from 2 to 4 years, depending on the burn hours, how much you use your lights, right? So what we wanted to do is, what we would do, the first thing in this audit is put these data loggers out to understand how much fixtures are running throughout the day, how many hours, so we can get the actual burn hours. And then we would look at the wattage associated with your existing lights, and then compare against the wattage of the new lights, the LED upgrades, and that's how we would come up with the savings per year. So it's a pretty fundamental math exercise once you get into it, but y'all do have 800,000 square feet of facility space. And so there's a lot of district there. That's why there's a lot of savings opportunity available.
I understand your job is sales, so it's nothing personal trying to
No,
drag
not
you
at all.
into office problems here, but
Sure.
I get a lot of consistent complaints that we have a beautiful new baseball structure that is largely lit up in town when absolutely no one is on the field. I think if the district is serious about saving money, we just need to look at practices that are already in place and how we can actually be greener in our day-to-day processing.
Did I answer your question, Ms. Overby?
I have another question.
Sure.
And I'm jumping ahead, but I was just reading about if you were to recommend like solar panels or how you work that. Do you manage that? Like I was just reading, a host customer agrees to site the system on its property and purchases the system's electric output from the solar services provider for a predetermined period. And the SSA payments become an operating expense that is directly offset by lower utility costs, therefore making it budget neutral or budget positive.
So the solar, we would investigate the opportunity for solar, whether it makes sense at the district and any of your rooftops, or if you have adjacent land to one of your facilities. And then we would determine what the cost of that project is based on the siting, and then compare against what you're paying for energy now and determine what the return on investment is. So during the audit process, we would provide that return on investment. If you cited it at the middle school, here's how much solar you develop, here's how much energy it would generate, and here's how much savings it would generate. So you would get that feedback during the audit phase. There are also a number of federal incentives that are available that help buy down the cost of the solar projects, and it makes the return on investment really attractive right now, which is why we wanted to include it.
But I know your company is big on the solar stuff, and the reason, just like looking through the website, there's a lot of solar, and I mean, I'm jumping way ahead, I know, but
so I would just say
you
to
would
that,
maintain those solar panels is what I guess I'm asking,
yeah.
or we would be responsible for that.
So
too.
there are multiple ways to structure the financing on it. The solar service agreement that you were reading about is structured where we would own the array and then you would buy power at a kilowatt hour rate. That's one way of looking at it. And then there is another way where y'all own the array outright. But I do think it's a little bit cart before the horse, because while we do have solar on our website, we started as an energy efficiency company back in 2007 doing lighting upgrades and water conservation and some of these basic things. Solar has become more economically feasible in the last 4 or 5 years. And so we're doing a lot of solar, not because we're pushing the environmental attributes of it, because it's making economic sense. And so it's become more and more popular. But what I don't want to do is debate the merit of solar at this point, because we don't know if it makes sense. We just know that we've done it on a lot of other projects, and the school district is set up very similarly. And so we want to investigate it as part of the audit phase. We may get in and investigate and determine that it doesn't make sense for the district and not recommend it. But we do feel confidently from our walkthrough that lighting and water is going to make a lot of sense. And we think that the HVAC demand response program has a lot of opportunity there as well, and is going to generate significant savings. The 15 to 25% that I was projecting in the report does not include solar savings. It's the energy cost reduction from energy efficiency and water conservation improvements. And so we're not including that. We're trying to be very conservative in our estimate. But we do think $140,000 in energy cost savings is available to the district on the low end. And we want to treat that out during the audit phase.
So our exiting facilities guy, I know we were going kind of a slow pace of putting in LEDs. I can't remember where they all are, but I know there should be quite a few around. The other thing is, if you just look at all new construction, like restaurants and the Quick Trips and all these, they got water fountains that shut off, so you can't run the water all day long. Those are the kinds of things you're talking about, and especially with the kids in school, they probably just want to turn the water and leave splashing on people. But I mean, I think it's a great idea to find out where we can save money. We obviously are going to need to try to save money. If somebody's got a better solution to save money, then come up with a plan. But this sounds like a good start.
Wouldn't our facilities manager be able to figure out some of this on his own? He would be able to look at all the toilets and see how many low flow toilets we needed, or how many water fountains needed to be retrofitted to be an automatic shut off instead of the water just turned on and left running.
Yeah, I didn't want to put pressure on a
I'm just
fairly
saying,
new
I mean,
position, but that's what I was
We've
trying to
asked
hint
questions
at.
like that
We have
before
a
in the
facilities
past.
director, so
Especially again, back to when we were doing the bond issue, building the other buildings. That were the things that we asked about. Those topics came up as well when we shut off.
That's history now. We're trying to move forward, I think, aren't we?
we're
Well, yeah,
saying
but
we're paying.
what
Well-
I'm thinking, we need to actually probably have a study session to even see what our own staff could sit here and figure out on their own
Right.
first before sitting here and saying, okay, we're going to pay $58,380. I don't have the figure in front of my face right now. $380 and find out that maybe it's not as financially feasible as we thought, and say, oh yeah, you'll save some money, but not as much as we thought. But hey, here's your bill, $58,000. I would be apprehensive about writing a check for that right off the bat. Some of these things can be self-avowed. I mean, you can contact the gas department and find out when you're running heat in the gas and do where you have the set up to where it goes on and off to certain peak hours of the day. You can do that with the electricity. And water is pretty much just changing out some fixtures. And of course, then the LED lighting. I mean, it's up to the board as a whole, but I'm just saying, it's kind of like we just got this like right here in our laps, and it's like this opens the door for exploration, but I'm not so sure that this needs to be the final. Sometimes too, when we do things like this, it's not we get somebody's one perspective, but we open it up to where we get bids with other perspectives. And then we tend to go with the lowest bidder.
I just felt personally like we were skipping the facilities director step because we have a facilities director. We're not a district that doesn't have one. And so I'm just missing where that is. We pay a facilities director. So I'm trying to figure out, what that role is and if we're missing something we're already paying for.
So I could speak for a minute. One, just want to remind you, he's new to the position.
Yeah. Which is why I was
60, 75 days, whatever it is, right? Two, I do believe he can count quantities. I'm not concerned with that ability. But some of the metrics, some of the calculations that are done on this is no disrespect to Matt. This is no disrespect to John. That is outside of the scope of that position. Does that make sense? And so this is somewhat of a specialist kind of scope of work. This is what they specialize in. Does that help? I'm more than happy, and I do believe facilities has been engaged. Just to be clear,
And I'm
he
assuming
had
we
a
don't
family
have
issue
somebody
tonight.
more
So.
locally that does the same thing.
I'm sorry.
I'm assuming we don't have somebody more locally.
Yeah, I am not aware of firms that are here in Leavenworth that specialize in that. If there is, please let me know. My preference for using local firms if we can,
Okay.
but
Yeah, and certainly in Leavenworth, our office out of Lenexa would be the office that would be supporting this project.
So I got a question on the 58,000. If we needed to replace all of our sinks, like does that money roll over to those sinks?
It's not specific for the quantity of the sink. The 58,000 is the time that we are on site doing the
Okay.
investment grade audit.
And that's it.
But the savings that we are projecting based on our experience in K-12 districts with water conservation and LED lighting would more than cover the cost of the audit and the cost of the upgrades for water and LEDs. We are really confident in that project in and of itself. We do think the demand response will generate a lot of savings as well. And then we want to look at solar because of the recent economic benefits that have been provided on other projects. I agree. We've met with the facilities team already, and they are very capable. I think it's a bandwidth issue, to be perfectly honest. You're talking about 800,000 square feet of facilities, and they do a lot more than trying to provide a lighting upgrade here and there. I know that they focused on it the past handful of summers, trying to do LED improvements, and we're estimating still close to 70% of the district is not LED. And so the longer you wait to do that, the more you just continue to pay those higher utility costs. And what we're proposing is being able to come in and do this quicker and reduce the cost of operations of the project. So that's the strategy behind it. And certainly some of it is specialized. The demand response component is very technical and understanding the load profile of the district and what the opportunity looks like there with HVAC controls, et cetera. And it's time intensive. I mean, for our team who would be dedicated to the project, we're talking about 90 days of intensive investigation. And so we would put a team on site and be involved in developing this project over a 90-day period. And it's just hard for a facilities team, given all of the other responsibilities, for them to focus on that while they're trying to do everything else.
I don't think it's out of pocket for a facilities director to be expected to be the one being on top of energy efficiency when it comes to commercial situations. So I guess I would like to dive into a little bit more of what, why that isn't the case, maybe in our case. But, I just can't imagine that it would be more cost efficient to outsource replacing light bulbs,
I will touch on that.
Okay.
I do believe we have the capacity to self-perform some of this work. It's whether or not we want to be patient about that. So the best example is all these light fixtures in here. We can do that. We have the capacity to do that. It will pull those men and women away
Sure.
from something else. And so to his point, are we willing to be patient enough for that project to take 9 months when it could have been contracted out and done in 2 weeks? Does that make sense?
At a higher
So,
cost.
Yep. So there's a lower cost at the scope of work, but the utilities are ongoing during that waiting period, so to speak. Does that help?
Thank you so much.
Okay, so if I could ask something about things that could help us accomplish this. You have a list of school districts that you've worked with on efficiency or with NABLs. I know we're on here for NABLs. What is your most recent school district that you've maybe done this process with that is approximately the same size square footage that you're looking at with us?
We just finished up a project in Farmington, which is Northwest Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost the same size district.
Okay.
And it was lighting, water, HVAC improvements. They had older HVAC equipment, controls upgrades, which I don't need that. We did an extensive solar project for them as well. So it includes a lot of the same things. They don't have demand response capability there, so we didn't include that, but all of the other measures were included. It's a recently finished project that we can
So
provide data for.
ballpark, how much did that project cost?
It was close to $5 million, but there was a lot of HVAC equipment and controls that contributed to that.
Right, so there's no way for you to ascertain by removing that HVAC to get those figures.
I mean, for your LED project, we typically estimate about $1 a square foot. So if you're thinking 800,000 square feet and about 70% of that is not LED, then you're talking $550,000, $600,000 for an upgrade.
How did their facilities department compare to ours?
They have a facilities director and staff associated with it.
Is it like smaller, bigger? I'd say it was about the same.
How many facilities staff members? I've only met the facilities director and the grounds coordinator.
So one director, 6 are on grounds,
Okay.
and then the rest would be considered building custodial,
Okay.
which that's the bulk of ours here. And then we do have some that are in leadership positions as well. So we've got a coordinator
Okay.
of custodial and a coordinator of coordinator of maintenance.
So how many staff would you say if we undertook doing bulb replacement? How many people would you say we have available to work on that project?
You're going to depend on the time of year, right? So I'll just use our grounds crew as an example. They'll wrap up mowing here this week. This was just a conversation from this morning. And then they'll move inside and they'll start doing projects, so to
Okay.
speak. They are able to mobilize that team of 6.
Okay.
Does that make sense, Mrs. Reed?
So my next question is, with this school district that you worked with in Farmington, Arkansas, you said? You have where there are grants and rebates that can help make it more financially feasible. Did they qualify for any of those grants and rebates? Yeah, and I know some of those changed per state.
They did. They have the utility has a similar rebate program there for LED lighting.
And about how much was their rebate?
I don't know that number off the top of my head.
And did they qualify for any grants? Did you help them write grants or
We did not help them write any grants.
you're just aware that you could show them where grants are and then it will be up to them to find a grant writer to get it?
We had investigated a couple of options with them that they weren't eligible for, just based on their income as a community. And so we didn't pursue those for them. We had pursued grants with other districts previously, and we've been successful. So if there are grants available, we can certainly.
Do you know about what the amount of one of those grants was?
It varies dramatically. There's a lot of federal money out there right now for energy efficiency, but it varies dramatically. We did recently help the Mid-American Regional Council with Kansas City go after a multi-million-dollar grant and used our engineering services for that, and it was successful, and it's funding nonprofit energy renovations across the metro area. So we have recent examples of success, but I'm not gonna promise because those are highly competitive and we just have to put a really good project forward. I will say that, doing the audit and providing that kind of granular information in the grant application is really important. So if you're going to be successful, that's going to be critical.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Has our district looked for any grants on their own prior to initiating this discussion with this company?
I'm just going to speak to my time.
Uh-huh,
That way, answer will be no.
okay,
I cannot speak to prior to the last 18 months. So
okay.
I'll look at Beth here. Beth, can you advise?
I don't believe so. No.
Okay.
I got a suggestion. Why don't we table this and get our new guy involved a little bit and see what he thinks? And give us a picture of how it's going to impact the rest of the district while we're doing this analysis with our staff and what that would cost.
So you want me to bring this back to the January agenda?
Yes, I would be more comfortable with that.
Okay.
Will that give you enough time? I know with the holiday and everything.
Yeah.
So I guess before I answer that question, what is the information requested? One, John be here, right? I'm talking our John, right?
I guess. I mean, I guess we could get a list of things before we go too much forward. But I'm saying just what it's going to cost us in our labor with our guys doing this.
Sure. So if you identify that the scope of work was 750 T8 fixtures, and we said, hey, let's look at contracting that out compared to self-performing that, what does that look like with a contracted service, i.e. electrical company XYZ, versus self-performing that with the 6 men and women that we have? Is that what you're talking about? Yes, I believe we can do that.
Yeah.
So when you were talking the water, you were talking more of like low flow toilets and shut off sinks and things like that. What kind of purchasing power do you have when you're purchasing those fixtures? Because that's basically what it amounts to, replacing fixtures.
So we have,
Do you have a huge success of where it's 50% off the dollar of what it would cost us through, say, something like buy board?
yeah, I can't speak specifically to a percentage reduction. We do a lot of water conservation projects. We have subcontractors that buy fixtures all over the country. And so there is purchasing power there, but to speak to a specific.
There's no price metrics or anything like that that we could visualize on how that would work.
No.
Thank you.
So do we want to table it or not table it?
I'd like to table it.
Okay, so the 13 January agenda,
Does that give them enough time to do the information block?
we will make the time. Do you want
There's
integrity?
a holiday in there, you know.
Yep. Do you want integrity back is the question. Because I don't want to take up another evening of these folks' time.
I would like to hear from facilities
Okay.
by themselves, and then if
We
if
better make it February then, because you're gonna have how much days off in December? They're not gonna be able to do that.
I mean, unless I'm grossly underestimating, you're just asking for a projection of cost for, say, the light fixtures.
I would like to hear a response on the whole.
Say that again.
I would like to hear facilities talk on the whole presentation.
Sure.
You know, myself, I would like to hear why it is we can't do it in-house overall.
And then
The
after we hear 'em, we
hesitation
can
is you
listen.
don't want to get in a position like the city does this and
Yeah.
all these entities do. You know, they pay a lot of money for outside experts to come in and do things that sometimes you can't afford. So yay, we did a study and we can't afford any of it. Or doesn't, some of it could have been done in-house.
Mhm.
Sure.
And that's my hesitation. I don't want to get in that position.
After speaking to John in January, we could decide then if we want to bring integrity back in February and then go see if we want to move forward.
Okay.
If that's applicable to the rest of the board.
Nope, I can appreciate that. I don't want to waste their time coming
Right,
back. so-
exactly. And I know the cost things can change because inflation can change overnight too. I do understand that.
I think it's more about the just cost of waiting. You know, you're continuing to spend utility cost. And so as you're weighing the cost of the team implementing LEDs, think about the time frame that it will take to do that install and the savings that goes along with it.
I'm good if you guys are.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you for your
Thank
time.
you.
you, sir.
John, thank you.
Number 12, strategic plan update. Who has this?
This should be Mrs. Sloan. So this will
Ooh.
stick with our normal cadence this time of year. We're going to specifically focus on both teaching and learning as well as student engagement. And it is the proposal of the next school year's academic calendar. Believe it or not, we're only halfway through this year, but we're ready to propose next year's academic calendar. Mrs. Sloan, are you ready?
So there were no changes to what was shared with you. Just want to kind of bring a couple things to your attention. After feedback from our families, we actually surveyed all of our families at parent-teacher conferences. We then also surveyed and got feedback, actually sent this out to all staff, both certified and classified. So, and in the process with the assistance of administration, staff, parent input, what you have in front of you, a change that you'll see, a most significant change is you see 4 professional development days, full days, in the first semester and 4 days in the second semester. The purpose behind that, from the feedback from families, they do not want late start or early release. It's easier for parents that it be an all day versus trying to find childcare in between, either late or early on the releases. But the most important reason why we're doing the professional development days is there's a need for some requirements that need to be met for letters training that Mrs. Batson has presented to you previously. This will allow for that, as well as staff wanted more professional learning community time, more time to work together collaboratively with their departments and or grades. So it will allow that as well. So that is really the only significant change in the calendar from previous years. We did focus and keep those on Mondays. Most federal holidays are on Mondays. Also to allow for families, if they wanted to extend into a longer weekend, it's easier for them to take off versus middle of the week. So we tried to be respectful of our families as well as align with federal holidays and things of that nature. I'd be happy to entertain any questions you have with regards to the calendar.
I don't mean to be a repeating things I've already stated in the past, but that type of commentary just doesn't line up with what I've received from teachers over the years. And so that's why. Well, just stating that they feel like it's a waste of time. They'd rather have, be off, because they feel like it's what we have already is a waste of
They would be very
time.
good teachers.
So that's the feedback that and these are from tenured teachers that have been in our district for many, many years.
So they don't want any professional development?
Well, just that they feel like the current way that it's ran is not beneficial. They feel like it's a waste of time.
Okay, so this year we went to PLC.
Yeah.
And there's PLC after school. Right now, the first Wednesday is staff meetings, and the third Wednesday is after school. This new schedule would not require that they stay after school for the PLC time. So this is changing based off of our staff's feedback. But you're saying they don't want that either.
I think this, we'll see what they say in the future. Hopefully, I think this will be better.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood you. I thought you said that they didn't want this.
No, I mean, I think we just need to make sure that the time whenever we're spending the time, that it's beneficial.
Yes, ma'am.
Maximizing the benefit to the staff of what happens in that time that they're spending. Kind of like a meeting that you have to sit through, but when you walk out of the meeting, you're not feeling more benefited than before you went to the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of that kind of thing.
Okay, I will try to get feedback from staff as best I can regarding those comments, and also feedback. Our professional development is based off of most of it is safe and civil schools, which we have initiated per the request of the board, looking for us to address the behaviors. And then secondly, a lot of the professional development is to meet the state guidelines as required. But I will share your feedback with our administration. We just talked today about professional development for next year. We're already planning the professional development for next year. So, we did just discuss it today, ironically. So we'll share those and kind of come together. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. I can walk through every month if you would like, but I can tell you I put 4 days, one on each month. As far as the professional development days, you can see it. It's on a Monday, 4 in the first semester, 4 in the second semester. If you would like, I'd be happy to go month by month and show you. Nothing changed from what I presented to you in the BOE, FYI, or on the agenda. Would anybody like me to go through every month? I'd be happy to. Okay.
We got it right here. Thank you.
Okay, I think you can all read the dates and see. We have to go through those. We'll move on to.
I'm sorry, Mr. Carney.
Oh.
My apologies.
Oh,
we are requesting action on item 12 tonight if possible. It sets several things into motion for the district. And so I would kindly request action on item 12, please.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the 2025-26 calendar with monthly PD days.
I'll second.
Got a motion by Mrs. Murphy, second by Mrs. Reed to approve the PD day, the calendar. All in favor of that? 6-0. Okay.
Thank you.
Now we'll move on to being able to read these dates. Is there anything significant in those dates you think I should address? I don't see anything that's out of the ordinary.
Nope. I'm happy to cover them real fast. So we're in that 2-week countdown. But who's counting, right? Students come back tomorrow, end of the last day, or end of the last second quarter, let's put it that way, is the 19th. And then we're going to enter break from really the 20th through the 3rd for students. So our first day back is January 6th. Board team, you were invited to an event on Thursday at the Pioneer Career Center. Look forward to seeing you there. And then your next regular board meeting is at 6 p.m. on January 13th.
Okay. Alrighty. We'll go to board member comments. Mrs. Murphy.
I'm going to start off with the sad note first. We've had some tragedies within the district, and I just want to send my deepest condolences and love and prayers for peace. There are no real words that any of us could say that could ease people's pain from loss. So I'm sending that out to the Hart family and to the Batson family. We're thinking about you. Congratulations to the JROTC program for all their accomplishments. They've been doing this for years now. I've been fortunate enough to watch my kids participate in several of these years that they've been champions, and they continually to surprise us and give us much to be proud of. Congratulations to parents as teachers with the Blue Ribbon Award. Also to Jake and Rachel for your accolades. And then I wanted to say thank you to Jean Hart, or not thank you, congratulations Jean Hart for the Elementary School Teacher of the Year Award at the 5th, 6th grade center. That is something that should not be missed as well. Coming up is the holidays. I'm just going to ask everybody to please be careful. Don't drink, don't drive, don't do anything stupid. Please be careful on 4th. We don't have lights up yet. It's kind of insane going up and down 4th right now. Just, if we get bad weather in, it's just going to get even more ugly till that happens. So please be careful out there. And I noticed too, just to give the board a reminder, January 10th is the last day for early bird filing to be part of the National School Board Conference in Atlanta this year. So if you're interested in going to the National School Board Conference, it would save the district some money by making those dates available before the 10th. So they can pay for it before the 10th so they can save some money and we can still learn. And thank you.
Mrs. Reed.
I have no words tonight.
You have no words.
I guess that was a handful of words.
Oh, okay. Jessica, do you have any words?
Just
Comments?
Have a great night and happy holidays to everybody. And spend time with your family and love them, the ones that are there.
Mrs. Overby?
I have a few words. Congratulations to our Parents as Teachers program on their Blue Ribbon Award. I wanted to make special mention of them because I did attend their celebration on Friday and thoroughly enjoyed that, and got a nice briefing on all the detailed process that they had to go through to get that award. So it's really something special and a great honor. So it's a great program for anyone in the community with littles that they might want to check that out. Oh, yes, you. Yes, you have a little. Congratulations to our Raiders team. Congratulations, Jake and Rachel. Lots of activities going on in the district. It's a busy time. Winter sports are getting underway. Congratulations to our boys and girls wrestling teams for their successes at the Leavenworth Challenger last weekend. Looking forward to the winter band concert tomorrow night. You might want to come check out some of our local talent. And I want to wish all who celebrate a blessed Advent and a joyful Christmas season and happy holidays to everyone. Enjoy the upcoming winter break. Thank you.
Bryce?
So to echo on all of the recognitions, is very proud of all our folks and all the good things they do and realize that it's a team sport. It's not that these folks, these kids, our students, our teachers couldn't do this on their own. It's all a joint effort. So thank you for what you do to make the district better. And we couldn't be as good as we are because we're only as good as you are. Mrs. Overby mentioned the band concert. So if you need some holiday spirit, there's one start. And then next Monday night, it's a joint concert for the choirs at the high school. They're going to be awesome. They're always amazing. So I encourage everyone to come. I'll save you a seat. It'll be at the high school. As we go into semester finals, I know lots of folks worry about the tests. I just want to tell all of our students and all of our teachers, take a breath. You'll be just fine. And then to our December grads, way to go. And we'll look for you walking in May. And then that's all I really want to say is be safe, be happy, and be the best pioneer you can.
Thank you. I have no comments. This meeting's adjourned.